Hello everyone. Welcome you to all to another episode of Identity in 15 powered by WSO2 Identity Server. So in today's session, we'll be talking about integrating Facebook with WSO2 Identity Server. So since I'm not one of the regular hosts, let me introduce myself first. So I'm Dinika Sinwat. I'm a software engineer in the WSO2 Identity and Access Management team. So this session is the second episode of a series of sessions we are going to conduct on integrating popular connectors with WSO2 Identity Server. So if we look at the series lineup, we have arranged multiple sessions about integrating different connectors with WSO2 Identity Server. So the first session, first episode was about integrating Google with WSO2 Identity Server. And today's session, as I told you earlier, is about integrating Facebook with WSO2 Identity Server. And in the lineup, there are three sessions on integrating GitHub, Office 365, and signing with Apple with WSO2 Identity Server. So if you did not watch the previous Identity 50 session on integrating Google, that link is there in this video, so you can watch that as well. Okay, so now let's get to the demonstration. So while I'm doing this demonstration, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the YouTube chat, or if you have at the end of this session, you'll be, I will spare some time for questions. So at that time also, you can post any questions. So I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, so let's get to the demonstration. So when configuring Facebook for identity server login as a login option for identity server, there are two parts for the configuration. The first part is configuring Facebook side. The second part is configuring the identity server side. So when configuring Facebook, we'll need a Facebook app created in the Facebook developer console. So I'll go to the Facebook developer console. So it's if you go to developers.facebook.com and log in with your Facebook credentials, you will see this page. So since I'm already logged in, I see this My Apps option here. So I click on this My Apps. It will show me the apps that I have already created. So now I'm going to create another application for this integration demonstration. So from these options, I'm going to select the third option. So its description says connect consumer products like Facebook login to your application to create convenient and secure experiences. So that is exactly what I want right now. I want to connect Facebook login to my application. So I'm going to select this option and click on connect. So now I'm going to provide a name for my application. So I'm going to say identity in 50. And this contact mail will be your Facebook primary mail, most probably. And this, since I don't have a business manager account, it says no business manager account selected. So actually, these things are not, required for this integration that much. So you can leave them as they are and click on create tab. So it will prompt me for a security check, and if I submit that. Okay, now I have created the sample application, the Facebook application. So from these options, I'm going to select Facebook login and click on setup. Okay, so these are the types of apps that we can create in Facebook. So I'm going to select this web option because I'm creating a web application. So as the site URL, I have to provide the identity server URL. Since I am running my identity server in localhost, I will provide that URL here. Yeah, up to this. So if you are running your identity server in a different port, your port will be different. And if you are using an IP address or a different host name for your identity server, this value will be different. So click on save and this will be saved. Okay, if you click on continue, it will show you the steps to integrate, set up the Facebook, etc., SDK for JavaScript, etc. So this quick start setup is not required for us. So I'm not going to click next and go to the other steps. So the next thing we need to do is do some enable auth client auth settings. So I'm going to click on in this Facebook login, left hand side panel on under Facebook login, I see settings. So I clicked on settings. So in these settings, the first one is client auth login that enables the global auth client token flow. So that should be enabled. So it's already enabled, so that's okay. And then the web auth login should be enabled, which is already enabled. And you can leave these other options as they are. But for the valid auth redirect URI, we have to provide the default redirect URI of WSO2 Identity Server. So this is the URL that you will be redirected to when after login, after successful authentication from the Facebook site. So for WSO2 Identity Server, that will be the common auth endpoint. So I will be providing that link here. For 3/common auth. Okay. These configurations are not required. So I'm going to click on save changes. Okay, now the changes have been saved. Okay, now the next thing is for the configurations in the identity server side, we need the client ID and the client secret of the app we just created. So to get those details from the left hand side panel, go to settings and click on basic. So there you can see the app ID and the app secret. We'll have to make a note of these things because we'll be needing them when configuring the identity server side. For the app domains, we have to provide the domain of our identity server. Since I'm running my identity server in localhost, I'll be providing a localhost here. So that will be different based on your setting. Okay, so now I'm going to make note of these two. Okay, this is not something that should be shared, but so I have to provide my password here. Okay, so I have to make note of this as well. Okay, since I'm deleting this app after this demonstration, so that won't be that much of a problem. Okay, now I have stored the app ID and app secret for later use and save the changes. So now let's go to the configurations in the identity server side. Okay, so if you don't have identity server downloaded, you can download it from from our official website, which is wso2.com/identity and access management. So there you will see multiple installation options to download IS from. So this is for our latest identity server release, which is 5.11.0. So since I have already downloaded and my service up and running, I'll directly go to the configurations. So yeah, so if I have to log in again. So yeah, I'm going to log into the management console to do the configurations now. So here in the left hand side panel under identity providers, you will see this add option. So click on that and then let's create an identity provider for Facebook. So I'll provide a name here. That can be anything. So I'm going to use Facebook. And this display name, description, and other details are not required, but those are optional, but you can provide a display name, description, etc. for your identity provider. Since they are not mandatory, I'm not going to fill those things. And so I'm directly going to the identity provider configuration. So under these drop downs, you'll see a federated authenticator drop down. So click on that. So in these options, you can find Facebook configuration. So click on that. And these are the configurations that we have to do. So tick this to enable Facebook authentication, and it will automatically tick the next box. And then the client ID is required. So we have to provide the client ID we stored previously and the client secret as well. Okay. Okay. So the next thing is the scope. So this scope is it defines the permissions to access the information from Facebook profile. So in the Facebook documentation, if you can find these permission references. So under email, they say that email permission allows your app to read a person's primary email address, and the usage says to communicate with people and to let them log into your app with the email address associated with the Facebook account. So that is exactly what we are going to do. So to do that, we need this email scope. So that is why we are adding this here. Sorry, here. Okay, then the next field is user information field. So this is to configure the user claims related to the Facebook account, the user account in Facebook. So these are generic. So I'm going to add some generic user claims. So these details are also available in the Facebook developers documentation. So these are some of the public profile details. So ID, first name, last name, etc. there. So those details will be returned to identity server when the user logs in using the Facebook credentials. So I'm going to add those details here. I'm going to add some of those claims here. So I'm adding ID, name, gender, email, first name, last name, age, etc. So if I configure, those details will be returned to me. So then the callback URL. This is the same redirect URL we configured in the Facebook site. So that should be the common auth endpoint URL. So I'm going to add that here. Okay, so now the configurations are done. So let's click on register, and that will that's the end of configuring the identity provider. Now we have to enable this identity provider, this Facebook login option to a service to an application. So I have configured a sample application in identity server service under service providers. So if you want to know about configuring service providers, you can refer to our documentations and do that. So I have already done that. So the inbound configuration is already done. So now I'm going to enable Facebook as the login option for this sample application. So to do that, under the service provider configuration, go to local and outbound authentication configuration. So there, you can select the authentication type. So by default, it will be the WSO2 default login page where you will be prompted for the username and password that is stored in the WSO2 Identity Server. So we can change this option to federated authentication, and there it will be the identity providers we have configured will be listed down. Since in this setting I have only Facebook, the Facebook will be the only thing that is listed here. But if I had configured Google, Office 365, etc., those things will be listed here as well. So I'm going to select Facebook and click on update. Okay, now for this sample application that I have named as Facebook has the login option as Facebook. So my sample application is deployed in Tomcat. So it's this pickup dispatch, which is a default sample application that we usually use in Identity Server. So if you refer to our documentations, you will find the details on how to configure this sample application as well. Okay, so now I'm going to open this in a private window. So you will see this pickup dispatch login page. And if you click on login, you should be redirected to the Facebook page. Okay. Now we are directed to the Facebook page because we have enabled the option to log in with Facebook credentials. Let me log in with my Facebook credentials. And click on login. Okay, it's identity in 15. It is my app name. Will receive your name and profile picture and email address. So those are the details that will be shared with the sample application, which is Pickup Dispatch. I can click on this. So yeah, it will prompt me for the consent. So I can say allow, and that will log me into the Pickup Dispatch application. So if I, yeah, so yeah, that's it about the configuration for Facebook. So there are some additional details related to this, like configuring this claims, etc. So if you want to know more about those details, you can visit our documentation. The link is there in this video description. So we have detailed descriptions about what I demonstrated here and extra details in this documentation. So please refer to that as well. Okay, now it's time. That's the end of the demonstration. So it's time for questions. So if you have questions, now is the time for you to ask them. Let me check in the Zoom, in the video chat if we have any questions. Okay, since we don't have any questions here, so while while I give you time to ask questions, I'll tell you about our social links that you can connect with us using. So if you have questions related to anything, not related to this session, but related to anything that about our Identity Server product, you can reach us by our Slack channel. So the link for Slack channel is there in this description. So yeah, our developer team is already ready to reply you at any time with any questions that you have. So feel free to join our Slack channel and yeah, clarify anything that you need from there. Okay, and then the Twitter link for our IS community, WSO2 IS community channel is also there. So please follow that as well. So there will share the details about the new events that we have and cool stuff that we do at Identity Server team. Okay, since we don't have any questions, it's time to wrap this session up. But if you have any questions later, feel free to ask them in the Slack channel. So we'll be happy to answer them. Okay, so thank you for joining and see you in our next Identity in 15 episodes. So have a good day and stay safe. Bye.